Well, hello there, everyone. Uh, Sitting in my car late at night. Sorry about the lighting. It's the best I can do under the circumstances. I wanted to make this video. Hope it'll be a short and sweet one. I just wanted to get some thoughts out there. See if well, I hardly ever get any responses or comments on anything that I put out, so I'm really not expecting that, but I just want to put these, get these thoughts out there into the ether. Concerning, I don't know if anyone has, if you look at my Facebook page or on Twitter or even on this YouTube channel, I've put a playlist, the Die Hold Foundation playlist that Doug Vogt has been putting together, and that information that he started doing was concerning the sun going nova, and it does so every, I don't know, like 12,068 years he's figured out. But anyway, I was watching his videos. I've watched all of them, and he started off with the, well, they aren't his first videos, but the way he came about doing a lot of the material, or reporting on a lot of the material that's in his videos. He started, looking into the cataclysmic events, and there seems to be a regular cataclysmic event about every 12,068 years. Okay, and through doing that research on that, he goes back to Abraham, and which is Abraham's basically, I'll just call it the root. He was the root of all three of the major religions that are in the world today. Is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And he's revered in all of the religions, all three of those religions, as being the father of those religions. So anyway, that led him to looking and researching the Torah and things like that, which is and he says it in his last video. I know for sure that the Torah was actually a programming manual, so to speak, which something about that I find very interesting is that the Torah is, I guess you would say, registered in the Library of Congress under I believe it's quantum computing, I believe, is the whatever the topic, or whatever, that the Torah as a book is registered in the Library of Congress. So that, to me, that seems like, that's pretty legitimate. I mean, and how many people know this? Not very many. Is it taught in school? No. Is it brought up in school? No. There's so much information that the average human on this planet, has no idea about. And so anyway, Mr. Vogt had done this research and looking into the Torah, and the Hebrew alphabet is made up of 20, originally made up of 20 symbols, and supposedly those 20 symbols, which this is what Moses had done, was, if you're familiar with the toroidal model and the flow of energy in the toroidal sphere, or whatever it's called, it's like a donut, where the energy flows through the middle hole and around the outside and back through the middle hole. So there's a continuous flow of energy, I guess you would call it. And there are basically, I guess the way it's explained is 22 different variations of where that particular proton or whatever that's flowing in, that's in that energy flow. And that's what the Hebrew alphabet is, are the representations of that energy at a particular juncture in its flow through and about the toroidal shape. So I find that interesting. It sounds like that is the basis of creating something like Star Trek replicators or something like that. So he goes into that, and he explains that and everything. And as well, that apparently and his idea between of the Torah and the computing and everything, he relates or explains that God, as being a label, a name of something, God is actually the operating system, which was stuff that I've probably, actually one of my first topics that I wrote about, that I've posted, was explaining what I thought God might be, which what I explained that in that first paper, that God is a process. The process of, actually, I guess, the very foundation of the creation of something. So anyway, but I've kind of changed that opinion a little bit with other knowledge that I've gained through research and all. But I think it still is definitely a process, but I don't want to get into all that right now. I want to try to cover a little bit more subject matter. So what I was thinking about was, okay, well, we've got this, and this has just basically very recently come to into the consciousness of humanity's consciousness. Okay, it's not very popular, not a lot of people know about it, but it's out there, and there are people that know about it. And as time progresses, as we know time, and it progresses, then more and more people are going to be subjected to this material, or to that material. So, which leads to, it goes in, say, the collective conscious, and I believe very strongly, I feel very strongly that if something can be thought of, imagined, okay, Not to say that it will come into fruition exactly as what someone's imagination might, be imaging within their mind or their conscious or whatever, excuse me, but that the more people that are thinking about similar things like that, the more probable it is that some iteration, like like an average, you take all of these different ideas and imagined whatever it might be, and the more people are doing that or whatever, I think it's how, not to go into all the details or whatever, but it's part of the collective conscious of humanity, and there's a more probability that these things will come about. Either, someone will have the idea and actually make it, or whatever. And so we have that. So if it can, I'm of the opinion that if it can be imagined, if it can be thought of, I don't think anything is impossible, in other words. And my personal belief, and this would be like, I have I have a few different layers of what I feel is the environment and the situation that myself, not speaking for anyone else, but the way that I perceive the world, my perspective on the world, and what have you. And that is at the very basic, like the foundation. I do feel strongly that we are in some type of, we are existing within some type of simulated environment. And not like it may be the Sims game, maybe pretty close, but I feel that there is a huge, powerful processing taking place, processor that's processing information. And I think that, let's just take AI for example, which I think is kind of oxymoronic to call it artificial and an intelligence at the same time. But anyway, I digress. So, yeah, there's this processing that's going on, and it is incorporating the data coming from everything that's within the environment. And let's just stay on the conscious, or the human conscious, or the consciousness. And so it's receiving data, okay, and it's using that data, and it's manipulating and programming and creating. And I think this is tied very strongly to what I call data form processing and data form programming, which is basically speech. Okay, it starts with that, and then it also incorporates a thinking process. And the more efficient these processes are with the speaking, the grammar or whatever, knowing the vocabulary, the lexicon, what have you, and then the discipline of the thought process. Okay, and I think that will eventually lead to, rather than take ones and zeros and add them all up, I think that, for instance, DNA, kind of, and you take the Platonic solids and how they the movements within those when they're nested, and then you take DNA and how DNA comes about. I think that is a form, okay, a data. It's a form of data. It's a data of form, and depending on how it's put together, much like a Rubik's cube or some type of puzzle, thing that you put together or what have you, then that determines, it's basically assembly. It's an assembly program, drawing from the energies and of different frequencies, of different, just all different kinds of things here. I think it's actually a very simple process. I'm not, I hadn't been to any school, and have a degree in any of this stuff, but I've done a lot of thinking on it, and so that's kind of what my foundational thoughts are on that, what I feel very strongly about. And so it's hard to, when you're out in public interacting with people and all, to come out and say, oh yeah, we're in a simulation or whatever, that's just, for most people, that's just too far way out there. So I have another level, above that foundational level, and that has to do with other life in the universe. And we have ETs. Notice that they're becoming more popular, taking more, and they're being taken more seriously now, especially recently with the Navy saying, this film that we have of these Tic Tac UFOs, or what do they call them, aerial unidentified aerial phenomenon or whatever, rather than call it UFOs. But so anyway, so then that's this next step up. And by the way, in my lexicon, or acrolish of love that I'm working on, I define ETs, which spelled out would be extraterrestrials, 2 words, but I use ET, and I'll look at it as ETs are environmental technicians, okay, and they're kind of, doing whatever. They might be taking samples, they might be adjusting things, they just might be observing, or what have you. So anyway, so that's that level. And then the third level up is, and actually it kind of goes back even, takes priority even over the foundational, that first layer of being in a program. Well, something had to develop the program, or in the processing and all of that. So regardless of, UFOs, UAPs, or any of that, and the simulation and all of that stuff, it had to be created, okay, and it had to be created by some type of intelligence, whether that be what people would consider God, whether it would be the creator, supreme being, whatever, okay, but it is a being or an entity or whatever that is much larger, much smarter, much more cognitive than probably humans could imagine, but anyway, so I still have a faith in that. But depending on who I'm speaking with and who I'm having the conversation with, is I have at least 3 different levels there that I try to discuss with these people, with whoever these people may be, and where they are situationally as far as their thinking process, their faiths, their technical knowledge, or just their perspective on life. Okay. So along those, that's basically my 3 levels, and basically the 3 factors that I use while I'm thinking and processing, stuff, and when I'm learning more new information that I haven't been familiar with, or what have you. Okay, so, and again, I'm no expert in any of this. I've never been professionally schooled, educated, trained, whatever in any of this. It's just stuff that I've come up with over half a century of thinking about things. And so the next thing I want to throw in here is that, with Doug Vogt and his these people, this advanced civilization, stashing some stuff or whatever in a cave, and Abraham came across it, and Abraham being an ancestor of Moses, and in that particular tribe or whatever, they knew about this, or at least the priests and the tribe leaders or tribal leaders or whatever, that they knew of this technology. But if we look around, we head, I guess from them it would be northeast, and we go into around China. Okay, and China has, I think it's called the I Ching, which is a 64 different characters, or they're like 2 rectangles and dots or something like that. But and I'm not real familiar with it, but it's somehow it's some type of ciphering, for they interpreted things as cycles and things, and the Chinese people, the Asian people, and I think especially Chinese, the culture, they are very attuned and focused on cycles. Okay, so anyway, long story short, throw in this I Ching, and there's 64, what are they, bytes? But that kind of throws up a flag for me, saying, well, yeah, in the symbol, it's not their Chinese writing. They're just, like I said, 1 or 2 rectangles and some small squares, and there's 64 variations of whatever these things are. So I think that is just makes me think of some type of code, digital code, and we, now we have 64-bit programs and what have you. We started out with, well, just say, like in the 80s, you had 8-bit, then it moved up to 16-bit, then it was 32-bit, now it's 64-bit, I guess it'll be 128 or whatever. So again, this kind of gravitates towards my foundational thinking process. And then, so I'm along in that same area of China, you have Tibet. and you have Tibetan monks, and I've never witnessed it, but supposedly there have been, I think, over 1,600 of these events witnessed and documented, and that is these monks, Tibetan monks, spending all their lives, meditating and disciplining their thoughts and their thinking processes and such, and they are able to transform themselves, well, from what people see from the outside or that are in the area, into these rainbow bodies. And there are people actually see rainbow colors and auras and things as these monks that are going through this, these Tibetan monks, while they are going through a process, and it takes a few days for them to complete it. So I'm thinking about that, and in rainbow, well, that's frequencies, it's light, what have you, the same, the rainbow, the 7 colors of the rainbows, you have your chakras, and that. And so where do we go? Where do they go when they transform themselves, transmutate themselves into a rainbow body? And then one of the Tibetan monks, I think, came up with a book not too long ago, maybe 20, 30, maybe 40 years, but I think it's about 20 or 30 years, and how the monks or whatever, if other people wanted to try it, they could shorten it rather than spending a lifetime trying to, do all of this stuff that, and get disciplined enough to transform themselves. It could be done in, like 10 or 15 years, something like that. So all of this, and this is turning into a long video, I'm sorry, but all of this keeps pulling me back towards, the simulation or some type of programmed and processed situation that we exist within. And and to jump back to Doug Vogt, he's talking about, well, the next time that the sun goes nova or whatever would be around 2046, which that's about 30 years, 25, 30 years away. So we're going to have to, if this information is all correct, and I think that it could all be avoided if people in most of the population on the planet gets on the same page with this stuff and starts thinking more positively, being more loving and compassionate and what have you. The light's getting kind of dark, isn't it? Put my other one up here. But, wow, shed a little light on the subject, huh? So, where do we go? What's happening with these Tibetan monks? Where are they going? Suppose another thing that Douglas Vogt said, that when Moses was they were wandering in the desert for 40 years. Well, it was actually, they did 30 days. These people were in this like buffer zone, for 30 days. But on the outside of the buffer zone, it was equal to like 40 years. So, apparently there's something going on, okay? And a lot of this stuff is probably known about already, but it hasn't been released to the public for whatever reasons. And that brings me to this. Why are these technologies, why are the Buddhist monks turning into rainbow bodies and a lot of this other stuff, why is it shunned so, the way that it is by what we would consider the status quo or whatever? That just tells me that there's a lot of the opposite of good in this environment, and that not good stuff, entities, whatever it is, does not want us, for whatever reasons, to ascend to a higher level of existence. So when you think of it, things like that, well, then that means that there's probably a lot more not good in the world than, as far as human beings, not the animals, not the plants and all of that, not the planet, but as far as consciousness, the consciouses of the human beings. There must be a lot more negativity within that conscious than there is positive thoughts and feelings and compassion and whatever. So I think there's something up with all of this, and I think that we have, as most humans, I think that a lot of stuff has been held back, a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and everybody in the most people in the alternative areas realize this, and it's not right, and I feel strongly that it needs to be changed, because are these people like the rainbow body people, are the rich people, I say rich people, I don't mean to say that, but these wealthy, influential people that have a lot of influence, a lot of wealth, a lot of power, the ability to get a lot of people to do things for them. Is that why money was invented? That came about was to keep people, like religion, to keep people in a certain size box? Or was it done to speed up technology? Somehow somebody got wind of it or whatever, and the idea got corrupted or whatever, and then so humanity is started to chase its tail, so to speak, with this money thing, because the money is holding us back from being more creative, being able to get along better with each other. Because the money thing, we could hate each other, alright? But you had something that I need, or I had something that you needed, or whatever, and we needed a medium of exchange so that we didn't have to get personal, we didn't have to really interact with anybody. You just name your price, here you go, take this, shove, whatever, get out of my face, I don't want to deal with you, I don't want to talk with you, or whatever it is. But money, I think, actually is separating humanity. Okay, we're working, our daily lives and our jobs are always to meet these quotas, and they're artificial. These things are artificial. They really have no meaning other than comfort. Okay? You know, we should be healthy. We should have already gotten past all of these diseases, you know, the cures or whatever for these things. You know, we should have already been traveling interstellar type stuff, you know, space travel, whatever. But the money has actually slowed us down and it has retarded us from doing these things. You know, however you want to think about it. But, and you know, it's the expansion of consciousness. Money, to a large degree, for most of the population on the planet, is a retardant. You know, it's keeping people from reaching their potential. You know, this planet, and the cultures and societies, for the most part, on this planet are very materialistic, and less focus is being given to the spirit, to the consciousness, to the mind over matter stuff. You know, and it all boils down. Now, are the, you know, these people in the upper groups of whoever's got the most power and finances and influence and all this kind of stuff, why are they holding people back? Is it that they can't do any better? You know, all that they can do is like on a material plane. They can't really get into the mental, the consciousness plane. I find that kind of hard to believe, but that brings to question, if they are able to get into this place, then why are they holding so many people back? Why are they holding the earth back, the population of earth back? I mean, I think these questions need to be answered. And nobody's given it any thought because we've been brought up in this materialist type with this materialist type mindset or whatever, and we're not thinking about that. Most people believe, oh, well, there's no such thing as that. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, that's baloney. It's fake. It's no such thing. But it is. It is. And it's for whatever reason, that type of thinking, you know, and research of stuff, it's only behind closed doors and all of that, where we have the major religions, the pharmacy, medicines, and all of these types of things are all based on these material things. It's like what you can feel, you know, which brings in the money thing, you know. Oh yeah. This is all you need, you know. As long as you have a lot of money, you can do anything you want. Well, that's not necessarily so. You might get away with a lot of stuff, but having a lot of money, just having the money by itself, is not going to get you from planet Earth to Alpha Centauri. Okay? That's not necessarily the best way to make an analogy like that, but you know, it's where do we go? Where do we go when the monks turn to rainbow bodies? When we pass on, where do we go? Because it's pretty much evident that our consciousness is not produced within our brain. Our brain processes the information of the consciousness. Okay, but where is our consciousness? You know, where is that? And maybe if we start trying to answer that question, or questions similar to that, maybe more people will start realizing, and we'll get on that fast track, or a faster track, or path, whatever, to figure these things out, to get beyond these solar novas, and to get beyond all this stuff and still exist in a comfortable place, in a happy place. I know that sounds, that sounds so utopian, but it's possible. These things are possible. There is no thing that is impossible. Everything is possible. It's just the matter of our mental processing, our imagination, our ability to create these things. And we've been held back for so long. It's sinful what has been done to us as human beings. It's sinful. And this has gone on long enough. It's 40 minutes long. Sorry for the long one. Thanks if he's hung in there for this long to listen to me rant on. But yeah, let's make some progress. Some really good progress. And before I stop the video, thinking along the lines of the simulation and what have you, if you look into the what is it? I think it's Russia 2045 or whatever, and this came out years and years ago, and it's about they're talking about this project that they are actually building or working on building eventually by 2045, which happens to coincide with the next nova event that's supposed to happen according to Doug Vogt, that we will be totally digital. Our existence will be digital, and from there it will be, from at that point it will be in the way it's presented in their introduction or whatever, is that it moves that we, all the wars, we won't be fighting wars. We'll, be actually developing our consciousness, our, thought processes and programming, and our spirituality, and uplifting our consciousnesses. We will be working on getting to the next level, and I'm sure I'll remember. I'll put that link to that introduction to that Russia 2045 thing. It's pretty interesting, actually. A lot of people don't like it, but again, regardless of what happens, there is a God. Your definition may vary. The people that claim to be atheist or whatever, well, just keep in mind that even atheism is a religion. So, no matter how our consciousness, okay, where does that come from? It doesn't come from our brain, okay? Our brain is only processing information that we interpret as our consciousness, okay? Anyway, sorry to drone on. I'll get this up sometime tomorrow, and I'll try to include that link, that 2045 link. So anyway, y'all have a blessed day, blessed night, blessed morning, blessed afternoon, whatever it might be. Enjoy, be positive, outthink, outprocess, and outprogram the opposition. See y'all later. Have a good one.